Hello. This is every single Cuphead boss, from hardest to easiest. This might seem a bit random, which it is, because I didn't record me getting an S rank on everything. And I'm glad I didn't, because that could have been 5 different movies worth of videos. That's how long I had to do it for. But anyway, we have all the characters here. I'm just gonna... It's got a few phases in there as well. I don't even know if it's all of them. They haven't even named this one, so I have an excuse to rename this time. Okay, we've got Give Up at the top, because that's what you should do if you get to this one. We have Hard, because, you know, hard boss. We have Soft at the bottom. Soft bosses. Soft bosses like this one. Yeah, throw you straight in there, 8 ball. That's what you get. And easy for just, you know, not soft, but not mid, somewhere in between. Try and find the first one here. You're the carrot from the first level. You getting soft. I'll just put them all at the same. If they're in the same level, I'm gonna put them at the same part. Okay, I'm not going through every single phase of characters. It is a good opening to the game, and I do think the onion is slightly harder than the other two because of how hard the tiers can be to dodge. But usually if you just use your super on it straight away, it's not gonna take that long. My favorite blue guy. This guy is so cool. He's my favorite boss in the game, just because of how nice he is. He's not an enemy. You already know that. But Cuphead has to kill him to get past, and it's so sad. Still makes for a pretty easy boss along the way. So just slightly above the vegetable gang over here. Next up we have... Who's next? Why is this list arranged so weirdly? Couldn't they have just gone from start to beginning? Okay, we have the 2 frogs. These guys... These on my first playthrough actually almost made me quit the game. They were horrible. Every attack just seemed to hit me. But going back through it, it really wasn't that bad. It's still a big step up from these over here. Maybe I just got accustomed to the difficulty over there and expected this one to be a bit easier. But I'll put it in easy, because I don't think it's quite the average Cuphead boss. Hildeberg is not fun on S rank. I'm pretty sure I had to go 2 days of playing to actually do this one on S rank. It made me quit the first time I actually went for it. On easy mode, it's pretty average. Probably one of the easiest playing levels in the game. So for that, I'm gonna have to put it in mid. Still a good challenge though, especially for the first isle. We have the flower guy over here. Sorry if I don't know their names. That's gonna be a recurring theme here quite a lot. The flower man, he is severely overhyped. Really isn't that challenging for me. It's only the first phase where those things are kind of dropping out of the sky, the umbrellas with the balls on the end, and they land and make plants sprout out the ground. It sounds so dumb whenever I'm trying to describe it, but yeah, that's the only challenging part for me. The other 2 phases, you've just got to make a few simple jumps and you're fine. So I'd actually have to put this below the 2 frogs. That probably sounds crazy to you guys, but oh well. It's my list. Yes, the genie. The beginning of Isle 2 is just insane. Actually, all of Isle 2 is insane. I'd actually have to say Isle 2 is harder than Isle 3. But the genie is definitely a hard boss. The genie can actually start with 3 different first phases. I think one of them involves him shooting swords at you. The other one has chests with flying gold. And yeah, it's all just a nightmare really. His second phase isn't too bad. And the third one, he draws up a puppet out of nowhere. And then he has another one, which is hard as well. So it's really not easy. I have to put it in hard. It is actually a challenge on expert mode. Yeah, this is just a load of candy flying at your face for the first part. It kind of attack you in different sequences, so I guess that makes it a bit trickier. The final part is a bit of a pain because her head rolls off and starts hitting you. and then another one comes along and starts hitting you, and another one if you're not fast enough. But if you know what you're doing, it shouldn't be too hard, and it's just below Hilda. I'll put all of her goons there as well, because same boss. Yeah, it's hard. The first part's not too bad. You just gotta try and jump over him every time he charges you down, and shoot those balloons in the sky, I think it is. And then on the second part, he kind of turns massive. He turns into a balloon himself, and he just starts pelting you with all these shots. Where if you're not careful, one could just spawn on you, and you know, that's you run over. And the final part is just a nightmare, because it's that long of a fight, and the final part is actually really difficult. I'd say that just about gets hard. Yes, you can die. I hate this boss. This boss took me days to beat on S rank. It took me about 10 minutes to beat on normal. So yeah, it just goes to show how difficult it is to dodge everything in this fight. For the first stage, if you just camp the top, you should be fine. But for the second part, sprays feathers at you. So you got to keep dodging and keep trying to get shots on, which is where I just failed. And then a baby version comes out of this egg and shoots you with this gun with eggshells floating around him. And then he's on his deathbed and makes it so that if he goes to the left of the screen, you can't actually hit him. It's worthy of being up here, it really is. The dragon, yes, you. You're not too bad. Once you know the attacks and how to dodge those little fireballs in the second stage, it's not that hard, really. I'd probably put it at the bottom of the mid. The bee fight. Oh, did I miss? Oh yeah, I missed you. Okay, sorry for all the cupcake fans out there. I missed you, cupcake. Yeah, so the bee. The bee's the first stage with the police guy isn't that bad, really. But then the bee can do a load of different attacks, the queen bee. One of them involves spawning a triangle in on you, which shots are just really hard to dodge sometimes. And then at the end, she just starts sawing through you. I don't even know. Sometimes it's just random what happens at the end of these fights, and I'm all for it. As long as you use the right shot at the end, it should not be too bad. You just have to get one that homes in on the bee. But I would put it above the Candy Woman. Do you know, I would put it below the Candy Woman. That's not even the Candy Woman. What's wrong with me? I put it below the below the Waffle too. The Waffle is no exception. The Mouse Man guy. It's an easy fight, really. I actually go as far as it's below the Flower. And that is because the attacks just aren't that hard to dodge. You can get a load of parries in. It's the second phase, really, that used to screw me up, but when you know how to dodge that, it's really not that bad. The mermaid isn't that hard either. The only bad thing about the mermaid is the consistency of when she like traps you into the stone form is not okay. Sometimes it takes a good 5 seconds for you to turn into that, and by then the eels are already shooting at you from below. Yeah, and the last part, the very last phase, you can get stuck into a stone form and just hit into a wall on either side. So that sucks. And the first phase is actually pretty difficult as well, because there's a load of things that can happen. So actually, no, it isn't that easy a fight as I first anticipated it to be. But it's still not the hardest fight either. Really, it's you know, whatever, for a plain fight. Potentially the easiest one in the game. Dr. Carl Robot, I think his name is. Not that bad compared to this bird up here. But still pretty hard. It's not the worst fight in the world, because when you know what to do and which order to do it in, it's really not that bad. And you've just got to make sure that those bombs that he launches out, you got to make sure that they don't collide into one another when you're near them, because that can screw you over sometimes. It's really the last phase that I struggle with, where you've got to dodge all those crystals. That can get pretty challenging. I'd probably put it at the top of mid for now. Both of them. Next up is the pirate. And is that his boat? Is that the pirate's boat? I do not know. I have to look it up. That is the pirate's boat. Okay. The pirate is pretty easy. If I went back and tried to S rank it again, I'd probably be able to do it within 10 attempts. Because the only real challenging thing is how all of the attacks can merge together sometimes and make it so that you have to get hit. Especially when you get inked too many times. You can't see anything that you're doing. And you're just done for at that point, but it's really easy to not get inked, let's be honest. So I'd probably put it above the frogs. Okay, next up we have the Mrs. Actress thing. Is that the best I could come up with? Mrs. Actress thing. Yeah, not too bad. I don't remember this fight. What happens in it? All I remember is it took me a solid 10 minutes to S rank, which isn't bad at all. The parries were not readily available. I remember you being able to parry the roses at the end. Those were insanely difficult to hit. The rest of the fight, it's not really that difficult. The only real part where I kept getting hit was that stupid baby throwing things out of one of the windows. It just used to be wherever I was going to be next, and that hit me quite a few times. I'd say that's about on level with this mouse fight over here. The ghost train is well, the first stage. Let's talk about the first stage. The first stage is easy as long as you have that shot that shoots multiple lightning bolts out. The spread shot, I forget what it's called. And you get parries literally all the time throughout the fight. So if you struggle on those, yeah, you're just bad. Then we get to this part where she starts slamming her hands down. The only real part you can get hit there, if you're good at the game, is if one of those parryables lands on those controls on either side of the I don't even know what you're on. Is it a cart? Yeah, if those get hit and you get forced into a vulnerable position, you can be hit there. Then this final part, I just go crazy and use all my supers, because a load of stuff gets launched at you and it's not very fun. Overall, it's a pretty mid fight. It's not too hard. It shouldn't take you that long. So yeah, I'd have to put it right about here in mid. Well, we're going to hell, boys. We got King Dice, who is the hardest in the game. Here's why. All of these guys are not fun whatsoever. If you hit the dice at slightly the wrong time, it can cause you to get into a fight with someone you don't want to. It can cause you to go back to the beginning. You can miss hearts, and that just screws you over in the long run. And King Dice himself, I had to learn how to play with that smoke dash for the last part, which I did use for most of the fights here, because those cards are so hard to just keep on parrying and getting past without getting hit whatsoever. Yeah, let's get into his people. I actually rank his guys because they're bosses in bosses. These guys are just stages of a fight. Most of them aren't going to be that hard, just keep in mind. Okay, this Tower of Tokens here is really one of the easiest out of all of them. As long as you don't get caught off by any and just jump through the gaps, you should be fine. I would probably put it put it right here, above the 8 ball. Oh yeah, the bottles, they're also one of the easiest ones. You can just destroy the first one who keeps on falling over and doing that attack on you, and you're pretty much fine throughout the rest of the fight. Maybe just a bit harder than the tokens. And then the cigarette is probably in between both of them. Well, the next few is where it actually gets relatively challenging. This domino guy over here, he's cool and all. He can just throw you off guard when you try and hit super on him and end up landing on a spike or whatever. I'd probably put him as the hardest one so far. The rabbit is not fun whatsoever. I hate the rabbit because if you don't have smoke dash for when he just gets all those crystals around you, you're just doomed really. You've got to jump out as fast as you can. You got to hit all your parries. You just got to have a perfect time, and if you don't, you've got to start again. So just don't land on this guy. Okay, taking into account that it is only a small part of the level, I have to put it here, right here. The skeleton horse is not that bad as long as you time your moves right. You just gotta make sure you're always moving to avoid those things from flying up and hitting you. I'm gonna put it over here. It's amazing how I can remember the exact order that they're in. That's how many times I've done it. Of course I already put the 8 ball in. It's just the easiest part of the entire game. You should not be getting hit there. But you're not good if you don't have smoke dash, which you shouldn't have for the last part of the fight. So it's just not fun to dodge sometimes. When those things get rained down on you, you gotta try and dash as fast as you can when a gap opens up, otherwise you're just done. And I'd have to put you right here, probably, because it's still relatively easy to get a load of hits on. And yeah, you just shouldn't be taking too much damage here. And finally, this guy is horrible because you have to memorize all of the cards in the background. While you're doing that, he kind of moves slowly. You shouldn't really be getting hit. But if you get it wrong, he speeds up and sometimes hits you, which isn't fun. And it's just really long. And if you get it, you basically can't get CS rank. That's how much time it takes to beat this one guy. In terms of the actual fight, it's not that hard. But in terms of what it means for the run, it's over if you get this guy. So I'd have to put it above the rabbit. Now, they might not seem too bad if you look at them compared to the other bosses. But keep in mind, these are full bosses. Meaning, I'd rather fight this full boss again than have to go through these guys. Yeah, it's really bad when you take it like that. Then the devil is another challenge. The devil has a load of different attacks that he can do in his first stage, and as long as you can get past that part pretty comfortably, you shouldn't have that bad of a time until you get to that part where it's hard to explain. You have 3 different platforms, and there's these 2 dudes shooting stuff at you. There's things flying out the air. And in the final stage, you should be able to do 1 super on him and he's dead. But there are a lot of things that you gotta dodge, especially in the first stage of the fight. There are a lot of different things that can happen, so I'd have to put it at the top of hard, above the genie, pretty comfortably, really. You can't S-rank these guys in the King's Gauntlet. You just have to beat them, really. So it's not too bad. But let's compare them to these guys. That should be fun. The pawns just don't get landed on. Pretty simple, right? You're on Miss Chalice throughout this, by the way. That's difficult for some people. But I don't really mind it. You just gotta dash into them and, you know, that's it. Let's go for the knight next. It's probably wrong, but who cares? The knight has a few different sword attacks he can do. if you memorize when you can land on his main and parry him, you should be good. It's just about timing it perfectly and punishing him when he goes for the lengthy attacks. So I'd put him, I'd say it's harder than you, probably harder than the vegetables as well. Probably here. That's a fair place for him. Next we got the guy. I don't know what he's called. What is the... Is it a bishop? It's not a bishop. It's the rook. Yeah, it's the rook. Okay. He's got really nice character design. I really like that. But this isn't about character design. It's about difficulty, right? So let's judge it by that. He launches these things out of a cannon at you, and you've got to parry them over to him. Sometimes they can be really far away, so you got to hit quite a few parries in a row, but overall just a bit easier than this one, really. It shouldn't take you too long. And then we have the bishop. The bishop, I forget what the bishop does. I think he turns into this ghost. I think. What does the bishop do? Do you have to get rid of these parryables? I genuinely don't know. I don't remember it being that bad though, so I'll probably put it just above the pawns. The queen. The queen is pretty difficult to hit when you're using the cannon, but when you do, it only takes about 10 hits. And you've just got to make sure to dodge everything. It's probably the hardest out of all of them on the King's Gauntlet, though, with just the amount of things that you got to get out of the way of. So I'd put it towards the top end of soft, just below Mr. Blue Guy. Okay, then we get into the actual bosses here. Spider first. He calls these people in his first phase, and they shoot things at you. You just gotta try and parry a few of them whenever you can. He also has these cobwebs that launch out behind you and explode you. So you just gotta try and set them off to try and not get hit by them later. And shoot the caterpillar. First part's not too bad. The second part isn't fun, because you gotta be really quick in the way you dodge around those radio waves, I want to say. I don't really know what they are, but they're just these beams of energy, and you've got to be as fast as you can, really. So that's a bit trickier. This guy isn't fun either. He does bait you a few times by pretending to stick his tongue out, and then he doesn't actually do it. So it just feels cheap. I mean, just come on, Cuphead, you could have done better than that. And the fake ending is pretty funny, actually. I did get done by that the first time, but I don't think I died to it. I think I just got hit and then managed to kill this guy at the end. But this guy only takes a few hits, really, so it's really not that bad, as long as you know that he's going to be there. Overall, I'd say these come together to actually form a pretty tricky boss altogether. So I'd say it scrapes hard. We got the cow. The first stage is the trickiest part of the fight, I'd say. There's just so much. There's so much going on. It's insane. But as long as you can get past that, it's not too bad. There's this vacuum stage where you've got to move towards her, which isn't that bad of a thing because there's moving things from either side as well, so it gives you more time to dodge. Then turns into cacao sausages at the end, which aren't too hard to dodge either, but still relatively tricky with the amount of things going on the screen. And one of the pretty average playing level. If I had to rank it against the other playing levels, let's see. Harder than the mermaid, easily. Yeah, maybe on level with Hildeberg is pretty fair. Maybe just a bit harder, as seen here. So we have the guy, the really muscular hench guy, and his people. I don't remember this one being too bad. The first two stages are a breeze, really. It's only the last part where it starts messing with my head. The camera keeps on getting flipped. I do really like the creativity of this level. You're on a plane rather than actually being in the plane, shooting down another plane. It's just, I mean, where did I come up with this? The geniuses, MDHR, or whatever it's called. It's something along those lines, I know that much for sure. But yeah, as I said, the first 2 stages aren't too bad, so I can't really rank it that high. It's only the 3rd stage that is actually really tricky. So going off of that, probably have to put it towards the bottom end of mid in terms of difficulty. But a pretty good fight. I do like the fight overall. And next we have I'll do the mountain troll giant first. I'll do the mountain giant first. Not the mountain troll giant. He's not too bad. I do find one of the hardest parts being keeping track of those gnomes in his beard. That if you just land on them, it does damage, and they shoot at you and they hit you with a hammer or whatever. So yeah, you gotta keep out for them. And the 3rd stage, all you need is a crack shot or a chaser and you're fine. As long as you don't fall into the stomach acid. So I'd actually have to put it in easy. Probably right here. Because it's really not that hard of a fight. It took me barely any time to S rank. Whereas this guy, this ice wizard, he is the worst. He took me a day and a bit just fighting the same guy over and over and over. Which was pretty similar to how on King Dice took me actually, but he's not fun whatsoever. He barely gives you any parries for a start. And he just floats around up there and calls this massive snowman after you, who you can't even tell if he's about to bounce off the ground or roll. So you just got to kind of smoke dash your way through. Unless you have the heart ring, which you've just got to get lucky and see it before it happens. And then sometimes you even shoot your parryables away, as if you couldn't have any less parryables. And the final part is horrible again, because this snowflake launches all this stuff at you. It can be one of 4 things, I think. Or can it? One of 3. I think it does 3 different attacks, but it's still not a good fight. It's still pretty difficult. It almost made me give up. So I'm going to have to put it in give up right at the bottom, because it's not as hard as this bird over here. But next up we have, I'll do these guys first, the secret boss of the game. As long as you have smoke dash to get through the cloud, and you just stay looking the same way for most of the fight, except from whenever you need to, which shouldn't be many times if you have smoke dash. It'll be a breeze really. You just gotta understand the level, and it's all of a sudden not so bad. But understanding it can be difficult for some. So for that, you don't actually have to S rank it, do you? I don't think you have to S rank this one. Where would I put you in relativity to everyone else though? It's a good question. It's hard to rank this one because it doesn't come in stages really. It's just one long continuous stage, and you just got to survive it and you're fine. I have to put it at the top of easy. It's really not that bad. As long as you know what you're doing, it's fine. And then Chef Saltbaker, the one and only. The guy who didn't take me too long actually. But I know some people would really struggle, and I probably would if you put me back in that room, S-ranking the game. I would not enjoy it whatsoever. And it'll probably take me longer than it did this time. But let me break it down. First stage, not good. Probably the hardest one. You got to see what he's chopping up, which way he's doing it, so you can get a bit of a heads up on what's about to happen. You can get quite a few parries here, because those, what are they called? What does he shoot at you? Is it sugar? I think it's sugar. These blocks of sugar, there's these parryable ones. You should be able to hit those if you're good at the game. But the one thing I find actually tricky about this guy is the fireballs coming down from the ceiling. I just don't pay attention to them, and they keep hitting me. Because as well as everything else, it's just hard to look at those at the same time. But that might just be me. So yeah, he does have a few difficult things that he can send your way in this part. You just gotta watch out for those. Next part is not fun at all. Because these fireballs, again, jumping right on you, homing in on you. And you gotta try and avoid these herbs that sway from side to side. So it's hard to predict where they're gonna be by the time they get to your level. His next stage isn't so bad whatsoever, as long as you just jump out of the way to begin with. Only takes a few hits, and then it sends you into his final stage where he's just a plain old heart. Just parry him a few times, use your super, and it should be over relatively quickly. But all of that put together does make for a pretty difficult fight. I wouldn't quite put it in the give up category. I'd just put it right at the top of the hard category, just above the devil. And that's it, everyone. That's all of the bosses. That's all of my sleep paralysis demons in one video. You can see which ones took me forever, which ones were easy, and everything in between. So yeah, I'd like to see what you guys think of this list. If you're interested, please leave a comment down below on what you think I got wrong and what I got right. Because this is very subjective, I know. A lot of people play in many different ways in this game. Some people use different shots, different charms, different supers. I just stuck with the same super, really, and same charms. Same 2 charms throughout the entire game. I'd like to see what you guys think of it, and see you in the next video, which should be next week. Unless I'm going to change it up. Maybe. I probably won't. Bye.